Ladies and gentlemen, Gummy Ghost here. I wanted to make another helpful guide for the YouTube. I was just in the mood for that. And I wanted to help people get into the Souls-like games because I think a lot of people, struggle to get into this genre because it's not intuitive to them. I think they find it like way too hard to learn and they don't find it satisfying to go through that process of learning. It's kind of like how I don't like solving a Rubik's Cube, right? But maybe if I understood the theory of it, maybe I would enjoy solving the Rubik's Cube more. I guess we're going to find out today because I'm going to go over some principles that I think are going to help you get better at this game. Things that I think are going to train you to, no matter how you really think about these types of things. As long as you have like a basic understanding of video games, I think this guide's going to work for you. So, first things first, when you're playing a Souls-like game, you need to identify whether or not dodging or parrying is the better option. So, in Sekiro, you need to parry. There's pretty much no way around that. You need to learn how to parry to some extent. You can do blocks in, playthrough 1 a lot easier, but there's still consequences to that, and you will definitely not get through the game well, at least if you can at least moderately parry well. But in Dark Souls 1 through 3, you almost never parry unless you go out of your way to do it. Dodging is way more efficient. There's way less risk and you can usually punish in Dark Souls, this is pretty much 90% of the game. Is you dodge around the enemy, you wait for their frame, do that, and you punish. That's basically Asylum Demon and then 75% of the other bosses. But that's the thing. The other thing you need to know is if you are playing a parry game, learn how the parry mechanic actually works. So in Sekiro, you just hit the parry button right before the enemy hits you. But in Lies of P, the animation right here where P's weapon is actually up in the defensive position, that is the actual parry. Another example of a parry in this game is my R1 parry from the Two Dragons sword. When you see that flash, that is a parry. So that has different timing as well. And I can use that, right? If I know the timing well enough, I can time that really well. But that is a different timing than that. As you can see, I didn't tap the button as soon as he swung, right? Well, actually, let's see that again. Yeah, pretty much the second he moved, I moved. So the way it kind of works in Lies of P, if you're actually curious about how I do it intuitively, is it's like a badminton racket. The birdie's coming at you over the net, and you're using that swoosh motion to actually hit the birdie back. You're not hitting it with the flick of your wrist or the press of a button, if you will. So that's the nuance in Lies of P. That's how it works. I seem to be better with the R1 parry with that one, honestly. And the reward for that one is nice and meaty, but that's neither here nor there. But something that is here and there is the fact that the parry is still different than Sekiro's. And how is that? Basically, in Sekiro, tapping, right? This is what a parry would look like in Sekiro. If I'm fighting Ishin and he's like, "Come, Sekiro, my weeaboo is stronger than yours." And then he comes in and does a combo. This is how I'm parrying. In Lies of P, this is how I'm parrying. I hold the button through that animation. That whole animation is active frames. So you see that? That's how I know the timing is correct. Because I understand the mechanic. And I understand him. We are one. We are one. I can do it. Ow. That time I was trying to dodge, but I didn't have my finger on the paddle. That was my bad. Anyhow. Okay, so principle number 2. You have to control your stress management, okay? So when you're starting out in these games, Souls-likes, there's a lot of stress management. Usually the boss is designed to be intimidating and regal. So like with awe and respect, you look at that thing, up at it, and you're like, oh no, I am but a little man. And it creates that fear innately, like you're an ant and that's the boot, right? So there's some stress you have to manage, because not only does it look like that, it lives up to that in these types of games. Usually damage is heavy in these games. There are big consequences to mistakes, so you just really, really want to pay attention. If you don't manage your stress, you could react in a flighty manner, which usually is you react too early. You might put up your block too early, you might dodge preemptively or spam dodge before the attack's even wound up. You know, like they'll raise their fist, and while that fist is being raised, you're just like, oh, no. You have to control that. It has to be controlled if you want to get better at these games. You can get away with a lot, like in Dark Souls 1, in terms of like spamming dodge and stuff like that. But in general, you would rather have a measured reaction than an emotional one. The other one is you get afraid or you freeze up, right? And that's another bad reaction. Then you just kind of sit there and you get hit, right? You don't do anything. So, how do we deal with this? It's mostly just exposure, right? We go in there, and first things first, let's control our breathing. If you notice that you're feeling fear when you enter the arena, take a minute, try to figure out why that is, you know? Like, I'm stressed out, you know? Why? It's a video game, okay? So, like, here's the cool thing about video games. If I die to the Parade Master in Liza P, the chicks don't have to know about it. That's what's so cool, is the chicks don't actually have to know about it. But as you can see, there's a lot of intimidation going on here. He's way larger than me. We're both puppets. I'm not the big one here. He's the big one, okay? So there's already an instinct of like, oh no, this is gonna hurt. If he hits me, it's going to hurt. And trust me, he actually will hit pretty hard. Again, he lives up to that reputation. But another part of stress management in these games is learning to accept defeat. If he kills you, that's okay. Like, again, the chicks at the bar don't need to know. You don't have to tell them. It's cool. In fact, you probably shouldn't tell them you beat the Parade Master either. You really need to understand who your audience is before you have that discussion, in my opinion. Okay, third piece of advice, recognize when you're tilted. If you're upset, you know, is there a reason to keep playing if it's actually getting to you? Because sometimes you're really stressed out, and that is the real reason you're mad at the game. It has nothing to do with the game itself. Or maybe you're just having a hard time learning, which can be frustrating. It's like learning a difficult math equation or something. One of the reasons I'm making this guide is because I struggled a bit when I was learning initially. But, if I focus and, you know, I use a little stress management, I can parry a little better. It's harder when you're doing commentary. It really, really is. It's giving me a bit more respect for my Let's Players, honestly. As I do this, I usually record over my clips, right? So, this is kind of interesting for me. So just recognize when you are tilted. And then, yeah, the core is, you know, exposure. Exposure. Principle. Number 3. You need to know where to put your eyes. You need to know where to look when you are fighting the enemy. And I have 2 theories on this. It is either the shoulders of the torso or the weapon. You want to look at those 2 spots 9 times out of 10. When you are parrying, this will actually give you way more intuitive reads. When you're stressed, you might be looking all over the place. You might be looking at this dude's sick-ass armor design. You might be looking at his sick-ass noodle arms. You might be looking at his sick-ass twirly-whirly pat. Look at that. Beautiful. I missed the parry because of his beauty. You know, I was compromised by his beauty and his regalness because he's the king of puppets. But start to pay attention. And you could do a lot of intuitive parries when you're just not stressed again. But yeah, as you can see, The strategy I'm using right now is I am looking at his shoulders. I'm using the Filipino martial arts principle, where I can read with his shoulders. I'm using my peripheral vision to track the noodle arms, okay? His shoulders tell me the actual telegraphing, the noodle arms can feint. So, I know this move, I know I can punish it with, you know, attack, attack, attack. In fact, I'm getting a lot for free here. I'm gonna dash forward. Take advantage of that. Take advantage of that. I'm gonna take advantage of that. And then I'm gonna take advantage of that. And then I'm gonna, you know, put this on here. I love Romeo. He's so fucking brilliant. Oh shit, you bastard. I do love this boss fight too much. And I'm not doing, he's doing not nearly enough damage, dude. I don't know. Oh shoot. I'm getting cocky. Don't let ego get in the way. Pinocchio slam. Pinocchio slam. Oh shit, I didn't get it off. Anyhow, you need to know where to put your eyes. The reason I'm trying to push it into the next phase, by the way, is because he's more humanoid in this form, and I think that his weapon is easier to track because of its range. Like, when I'm trying to track him, when I'm trying to read his shoulders, it becomes a lot more difficult. But, ow, ow. If I watch his scythe, it seems to be better for me. So I wanted to show you that both methods of tracking in practice. That's why I chose Romeo. Like I said, he's fucking weird. That's why they named him Romeo, and because of the reference of sight. Before I move on into the final principle, I do want to add that one thing I struggle with personally when it comes to putting my eyes places is when there's a lot of particle effects, sometimes I get completely overwhelmed. Like, one thing I find that makes dealing with that easier is just learning to focus on the things that you need to focus on. Like, knowing where those frames are coming from can be very helpful, and particle effects can sometimes mask that, or they stimulate your brain way too much and you can hardly focus on the things you need to focus on. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up that's a weakness in my own gameplay. Though moving into our fourth and final principle, you need to learn methods of learning attack patterns. There's so many different ways. I think there's about 3 that I wrote on my list here, so I'm just going to go over those 3. But these are the 3 that I like to use, and these are the 3 methods you can use to learn attack patterns in the Souls-like games. So, one is to just experiment. Watch the enemy, watch their movement, and learn from there. You can kind of see when attacks come in, and that's, you know, going to improve your intuition. The issue with that is that on reaction, you're not going to usually do well. You're not going to react well to meeting a new enemy in a Souls-like game. You're going to be really reliant on having enough space and wiggle room to learn, which some Souls games don't really give you that room at times. Or maybe you just want to engage the games more aggressively, and those playstyles would never work out in your favor. Like, if you don't have good intuition and you try to play the games like Devil May Cry, you're going to get slapped up. And that's a part of it. So that can be a weakness of relying over on experimentation. The second method is to count. When you are watching patterns and you're using frames, you're basically counting each rhythm. Basically, every single attack pattern follows a musical rhythm of sorts. So it'll be like 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, strings like that. So what you can do is you can sometimes turtle in the game where you hold a block and then you just block the chain, and as the attacks hit, you're counting those, and that will give you basic precise types of blocks. Like, if you want to do a perfect parry guide or something like that on the internet, counting is probably the best method to achieve something like this. You can literally get it down to a formula to where you can not miss a parry because you know the exact strings like you're reading off of sheet music, okay? This is very intuitive for people that have good rhythm sense or that are maybe musicians, right? So that's like the second method. And our third and final method is instinct. And instinct is it's so hard to explain instinct, and the only way you can really develop instinct is through exposure. And what instinct is you can perfectly track attacks and you can react to them by literally just watching. You know, on reaction, on instinct, the parry comes naturally. And this is the thing that I really want people to try and develop. And there really is no proper way to learn it other than like literally just trying to develop, you know, good stress management. You want to develop a good stress management so that you can develop proper instincts. And really it comes down to exposure. You have to accept defeat over and over again, so you have to be willing to die in these games without taking a ego hit. You know, don't let each death in a Souls game become ego death like we discussed earlier. It's not going to impress the chicks either way. So again, you need to just let go of yourself, let go. It's like me. It's like the Book of Five Rings by Musashi. It's just like you need to let go of yourself in order to get good at these games. But oddly enough, I do have violence in my real life work. You know, I work with special needs people, let's just say, that get violent sometimes, so I have to react to real violence. And I remember being shocked by that initially, and it actually, I developed reactions when that would happen, and it would be instinct that would actually protect me most of the time, you know, moving forward right now. And I had to develop those instincts, and you can practice, you know, FMA all you want. You have to be in the field to really develop those instincts, right? And I just want you to know from personal experience, that's how, you know, I got there, you know? I kind of saw it in the real world and in the video games, and I really saw it in the video games first, you know? I saw a weakness in my character where I was reacting to fear. I was, you know, taking the game too personally and not enjoying it for what it is. A perfect respect for my intelligence, you know, a perfect, you know, representation of that. Like this game's like, hey, I know you can learn this pattern. You're not that dumb. I know you can get over the fact that the enemy is scary, and you know, because you're an adult. And that's why I love the Souls-like genre, and I hope that this guide helped bring you further into the Souls-like genres, because I feel like it's one of the genres that are doing well. Unfortunately, I do think that there's a saturation problem that we're starting to see, of course. There's a lot of videos being made about that. This is kind of a side ramble in case you just wanted to be here for the conversation. But yeah, there's a lot of imitators, and it's very reminiscent of the early 2000s where everyone was trying to be a Call of Duty clone. So, like, yeah, it reminds me a lot of that. But if you just play the good ones, it's really not that much of a problem. I don't know why people are complaining about it that much. But anyhow, this is Gummy Ghost. I hope you learned something from this guide. I hope that, even if it's not for you, I just hope you learned what, like, the expectations are really. Like, what you need. Like, it's a better mindset to go into when you play these games than I think, you know, thinking that, oh, I'm a good gamer, therefore I should be able to beat it. Like, you shouldn't have that mentality. Anyhow, this is Gummy Ghost, signing off.